Hey, Comics Cubers. Today, my guest is Josel Nicolas, a local artist from the Philippines who does a comic called Windmills, which is a very personal, kind of autobiographical comic. He calls it semi-autobiographical because he portrays himself as a bear, and everyone else in it is also anthropomorphized. So he does those kinds of comics, and we talked to him about it and his influences. Please support us on Patreon. The links are down below. And without further ado, Josel Nicolas. Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. Today I'm joined by Josel Nicolas. And Josel is from the Philippines, a Filipino creator. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Doing good naman, hindi naman binabaha or anything.
No, no. I'm in
Just,
Project 3, but a bit high.
Josel, I have one question that I ask everyone who comes onto my show for the first time, which is, why do you love comics?
Um, hmm. It's a good medium. It doesn't allow for it both needs a high level of skill and none at all to work. And that might be my favorite uh, thing about it is that enigma of trying to make a picture, a doodle draw between two, move between two panels. So that's been something that I've been exploring in a lot of my work for a very long time is
I,
the idea of a good drawing and a bad drawing.
I'm really curious about that, and I really want to explore that further. Because when you say it takes a lot of skill and none at all, I think I know what you're talking about. But could you elaborate further for the people who might not know what you're saying?
Um, I think one of the important works that influenced my own work was Eddie Campbell's King Canute Cloud. My friend Adam David lent me a copy as like a college kid. He said, "I think you'd like this," and it was as Eddie Campbell's work is it's a semi-autobiographical. Autobiographical has had a lot of dialogue and scribbly lines and scribbly text. And I think specifically his work, his book,
Like,
Fate, no, not Fate of the Artist. It's his first book. Oh, no, it was Graffiti Kitchen. That was my favorite book of his, where he would just scribble the panels and scribble the it's like an essay, but like first person told, right? And in a lot of these drawings, they were just ink doodles that were basically smeared on the paper, and it fascinated me. They could tell such a complete and compelling story with such spare line and spare drawing and excellent writing. And I think that's been something that I've been chasing in a lot of my work ever since, to differing degrees.
just so it's really interesting to me that you said the words good drawing, bad drawing. But given that this is comics, and given that comics is about storytelling, is there actually such a thing as a bad drawing?
Jim Lee, maybe. I don't know.
The shots have
I,
been
I,
fired.
no, he's good. He's good. It's just maybe no, but that might be me. In like, I feel like most drawings you could find something charming in it. Um, maybe AI drawing, maybe or
Those
for
aren't real
maybe for
drawings.
well, yeah, maybe some of the works that approximate. Maybe, that's something that I find with comic artists. When they start off, they're very stiff and they're very academic. They have all of these insecurities in their line. Like but as they age, it's always towards looseness. You could see that in Frank Miller. You could see that in Steve Dillon. um, in a lot of people's works. So
You can see it in Kirby. It's
you
everywhere in
can see
Jack
it
Kirby.
Kirby.
Yeah.
It's funny, with Sir Jerry Ellen Gillen, it kind of went the opposite way. Or it had troughs and valleys, right? Because my favorite work of his, and it influenced me a lot, was Wasted. I read it as a high school kid, and I saw like they were perfect drawings, but they were drawn with the intent to tell a story, and the story was compelling enough for a kid to really get into it. And I just it's the same thing with like the image creators, where like a lot of people who grew up on the image creators, they will say, I like Rob Liefeld because I could figure out how to draw his lines because their lines were like pen lines. And that's what I felt with Wasted. But with the going back to the topic, with Sir Jerry, it's like starts out loose, but then it becomes stiff, and then it becomes looser at the end with like Crescent Matchup again. So
No, it's interesting because I have talked to people about it because I think a previous interview of mine said that he thinks that the appeal of Rob, for example, is that Rob's art seems accessible. Like you could draw like
mm,
Rob, whereas it's a little bit harder to get into somebody like, let's say, Adam Hughes, because you can't
mm,
draw like Adam Hughes unless you put
mm,
in the work, right?
yeah,
Um, so is there, instead of good art and bad art, would you say maybe there's just art that fits a story or and art that doesn't fit a story?
definitely. Definitely. It's you want to see the shaky hand, you know. And if there was actually like good art or bad art, then we wouldn't have like 70% of Peanuts because he lost his line, right? That's
He did.
technically not his best, but it's what he had to work with. So I guess in a lot of ways, the way that I would approach comics is the way that you would approach handwriting. Is it legible or is it not? And a lot of it is legible, man. So
Yeah.
yeah.
When I first read From Hell, since you were talking about Eddie Campbell, when I first read From Hell, I was like, I can't stand this artwork. And then I think maybe two chapters in, I said, this is the perfect artist for this story,
Mm.
right?
I
Uh,
do feel like the first few chapters were bad in that he was using that not bad, but it wasn't his usual. He was using the burlap sack texture, which I hated because it was just why are you doing this extra work? Like because early Campbell is it's loose line with a lot of zipatone, and he's never used that burlap sack in anything else, and he dropped it pretty much quickly after the first few chapters. So,
yeah, when he hit chapter four, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty incredible. So,
mhm.
um, so yeah, so aside from Eddie Campbell, who else would you say influenced?
Influences.
Yeah,
Um, there's Eddie Campbell. There's a big Kevin O'Neill influence because that was just the first graphic novel trade paperback that I bought for myself at 16. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I just love that.
that's so good.
Um, yeah. Um, people have told me like, oh, you draw it. That's the nose from like that guy, Kevin O'Neill. Sev, Jerry Landilan. There's Nate Powell. Um, who else? There is
There's yeah,
Monkey Punch. I really love Monkey Punch, the guy who drew Lupin.
okay.
So this is the third thing.
I was gonna say there's a guy whose work your art really reminds me of, and I'm surprised you didn't name him.
Is it Bill Sienkiewicz? No.
James Kochalka.
He is actually he is a big influence. So that is true. That is primarily where I get a lot of the layering and composition I've had, especially in early Windmills. It's because I love the American Elf. That was like that's a huge guilty pleasure. Just
Guilty?
because so,
It's pretty
yeah, a lot
acclaimed.
of okay. Um he's weird because he had that whole manifesto about craft is the enemy. So he's like he's everything has to be cute and craft is the enemy. But the most ironic thing about that is his work is so craft focused because he was a painter and all of that. And I think he has really bad arguments with it, but I loved it. I love reading all of that, and like there are several times I cried just because of how like when his cat died. It's like, oh, Spandy. So yeah, James Cochran. Oh wow, that's a good pull.
When did you start making comics?
I started making comics where high school when I read Waste. I think the best earliest comic that I did was like was a rest. It was in high school. I did like a wrestling comic with Kurt Angle. I remember that, and I felt like that was pretty successful in terms of like how I drew it. I actually really liked
Back when Kurt had hair.
hmm?
Back when Kurt had hair.
No, he.
No?
I mean, I drew him bald, so that
Okay.
was like later era. But it was yeah. I think it was around 2005 or something where I got really serious because like my brother-in-law introduced me to Watchmen and Dark Knight and all of that. Read the Ultimates and I read Wasted and yeah. But professionally, I think professionally, it was like 2006 where I sold at my first Comic Con, which was the second Comic Con.
Second Comic Con, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you remember what the trigger was? Like, what was the comic that you were reading where you thought, like, man, I should make some of these?
It was wasted.
It was
It was just
wasted talaga.
absolutely wasted. Yeah, it was absolutely like I would visit his website every day in blog ni Sir Jerry. He was such a big part of like the internet for me at the time and it was a it was a refuge from like a little bit of a bad home life and just it felt like oh I wanna partake and contribute to this comics medium. So even my choice of school was partly influenced of that because he went to UST. I wanted to go to UST. Should have taken up architecture or something though. But so it was definitely wasted. And it is wasted for a lot of people as well.
It is. I do think that a lot has to be said about the fact that there's somebody nearby who created something great, right?
Well,
A legend.
I remember like when I read Wasted, it wasn't because I saw the drawings. I finished the book and then there was like a back matter interview with Pulp on Jerry. I didn't know Wasted was Filipino at the time. So I read yung interview ni Jerry and he was talking about how he got inspired to make comics because he watched or read an interview where he found out that Will Spertasio was Filipino and he realized, oh, I could do this too because I'm Filipino. And by in that general sense, when I read that, like, oh, I guess I could do that too because I guess I'm also Filipino. So it was really stupid how that started.
It's empowering. So I was reading Windmills. So you were kind enough to give me a copy of Windmills, parents.
Thank you.
Before I ask you anything about Windmills, would you want to tell our viewers in a few words what Windmills is all about?
Oh my God. It's
The despair in that voice.
uh it's, it was always funny to me because I would try to tack on so many words to explain what it was. It's a semi-autobiographical anthropomorphic furry comic novel. Yeah, that is about basically about college life. The first book is about college life and graduating from college and breakups and that stuff. And
When
it's yeah.
when you say semi-autobiographical, is the only reason it's semi-autobiographical is because it's about a bear.
I got mad at the intro by Adam David because he said semi-autobiographical. And then I was telling that to my girlfriend, like, it's not semi-autobiographical. Only basically one story is kind of not exactly as it was, but it's very stringent about the truth and all of that. But then she said, but you're a bear in it. Isn't that, doesn't that just make it not completely 100%? Like, I guess
Well,
that's the only reason.
you know the thing about mouse in bookstores or Spiegelman's
Mm.
mouse is that bookstores didn't know where to put it because they couldn't put it under history because it's about a mouse, but they couldn't put it under like cartoon whatever kid stuff because it's about a true story about the
Mm.
Holocaust. So they just kept it in the new releases for years.
That's the best thing of that outcome. That's so unfair.
And I have been told that that is Mouse is a huge reason why there is a graphic novel section in Barnes and Noble because it
Oh, that's
had to go somewhere.
but that's just how what is this stuffy people get about their fictions because what if it was about like Schindler's List? That's not actually Schindler either. That's an actor portraying that guy. So it shouldn't be that much of a leap. You know what I'm saying? It's like I feel somehow that just communicates the insecurity sometimes and like like oh it can't be it can't be historical because it's got mouse heads, but it's got pretty much historical.
I get what you're saying. One of the things that I think that comics does better than any other media, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, is I think it handles autobio stuff really well. Partly
Mm,
because I think the comics, because the panels and stuff, work the same way. Yeah, it works the same way memory does. Um,
mm.
it's a little staggered. It's a little, you got to fill in the blanks and stuff. Now, the thing about that, the thing that strikes me about reading Windows is two things. The first thing is about how vulnerable you are and how much you lay it out there, the stuff that's happened, the stuff that you have to do with. What made you feel comfortable enough to be able to do that to a wider audience?
um what I really wanted to do psychedelic underground comic stuff because I also like Crumb and all of that. Wait lang. Wait lang, lipat ako.
Yeah, announcement.
Katabi ko yung barangay thing eh. So, nakakainis. It's actually really sweet because it's all old people running it, but they just talk so much.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, wait ko lang, sorry. Okay. What was the question again?
Vulnerability. How did you manage to be comfortable enough to show your vulnerability to a wider audience?
I made Windmills because it was when I would make my previous comics, I didn't know how to end them. Like some of my previous comics were like psychedelic Grant Morrison things that I didn't know how to end because I was making it up along the way.
Okay,
And
sometimes Grant
then
doesn't know how to end it either.
he
It's a
yeah,
joke.
that's
It's a
true.
joke.
Um so I just thought that I should get into auto bio because at least I knew how these things ended. I didn't really, I really didn't think na ano. Because I was a kid, I didn't think naman na ano, like who was I to tell like my story because I thought na you had to be a certain age and to be certainly in a certain way distinguished to tell like a story like that. But I like the Crest Hut Butch Up by Sir Jerry. That was also an inspiration, and like I thought na maybe I should do this, you know. So it's just what kind of leapt at me at that time, and it just became this therapeutic writing exercise that ballooned because yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know. I actually feel like the most vulnerable I got was like issue 3. The first 2 issues are still like kind of like college writing, but the third issue is where I feel like it really turned. But yeah, I don't know. At this point, I actually think na ano, it's weird. I would think that I would have a lot of more answers, but it's weird because when you do it for such a long time, it's like I don't really know why it became that. It's just you know what it was? It was the easiest. I don't know why. It just ended up being the easiest thing to do. You know?
In this society that we live in, where let's just say men are not exactly encouraged to share their feelings. How has the reaction to it been?
Depressing. Like okay, well, I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. Um, I've had more people, and they're nice about it. They bought it, you know. But it's like, ang bigat, ang bigat, ang bigat. And it's like, oh, but I hope na you get na issue 5 has a fart joke in it that is tied into quantum physics or whatever. And like it's, but I do understand because like my partner did tell me na parang, like it's like, you like the whiplash or like you go from dark immediately. The reaction that's the reaction to the first book because it is a heavy book even though I think it's a comedy but people anyway the my favorite reactions are like the grief one where it's about yung death ng parents pa. And I feel like that's where it clicked the most because even like old people would tell me that it helped them and like people thank me for being vulnerable. There was at least one person who read the whole zine in front of me and then they asked for a hug and then they said that thank you for making that and they walked away and they didn't pay for it. Uh, so it's been good.
Thank you for this
Yeah.
life-changing topic. You can have it back now.
So in that sense that's a huge blessing to me because that's like as you might see naman I love comics. I'm a huge student of the form and it's like to have that is a rare thing for a lot of people, you know. So I'm very lucky in the sense that I have always made stories that have had their audiences. They might not be a lot of audiences, but it's like very when they read it, it's like oh okay.
You're very open to the fact that you deal with bipolar.
Mm.
Um, Given that, do you think that creating windmills helps you?
I used to think that it was like a big help mentally until I realized it was around issue 6 or something, where I realized that it's just a symptom. That's not actually coping, or that's not actually processing emotion. That's using emotion as a fuel to create, which is good, and that's a way to process. And that's been like always been my process because I was diagnosed bipolar then later in life and parang I realized, oh, a lot of these early windmills were made in manic states and all of that. So like there's that urgency and anger. And then I think when I made the Taal or like later windmills where I like took a long break, it felt like that was less therapy and more of like the craft that I got from it. And so I make the distinction that it's a coping mechanism, but it's not the most therapeutic. You can cope with a lot of things, but you have to do the work internally. So that's how I see it. It's just okay. It's not the best therapy, but it's there.
It's it's uh it's not a substitute for therapy, guys. You still have to go to
Not
therapy essentially. Yeah. And yeah, aside from even being bipolar, do you feel the same way about it? How it relates to everyday emotions and things in your life?
um can you repeat the question?
In addition to because I just asked you about how the comics relate to bipolar, pero does it also affect? Do you feel the same way about it? In the way that you just articulated it, regarding how making comics helps you deal with, everyday life in general, like
Hmm.
events that happen through life, breakups, for example. Does it help?
Yeah. That's funny because I feel like right now when I will make a strip, it's more of a celebration of a thing, like a milestone. So there are a lot of things that I don't write about anymore. Because ano eh, I feel like the daily autobiographical comic is sort of dead just because of the internet. And it's been subsumed like a different form of like the hashtag relatable comic, which isn't necessarily like it's got the emotional affirmations of like an autobiographical comic without having to do the emotional empathy legwork of reading about the specificity of people, right?
Yeah,
It's like hashtag you're valid.
yeah.
So
It's generalizing the experience.
yeah, it's so weird because
It's the Instagram version
yeah,
of
I don't yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I don't know anymore where like autobio comics that are a little bit more verbose lie in anymore because heck, I don't even super love reading about it that much now. It was more of a novelty in like the 90s, 2000s when you wouldn't be inundated with the mundanity of people, but now it's like an assault daily. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Like, windmills has just become something that I can do, and it stopped. I guess I'll always do it. I'll do it till I die, but I don't know how big of a work that is anymore. Because even like Eddie Campbell, like
Yeah.
whom I adore, I love him. The years have passed. He's basically stopped most of production on that stuff because he said what he's needed to say. So I don't know.
No, it is interesting. I'm just gonna steal that one day. Social media is a daily assault of the mundanity of people. Just gonna steal that. The other thing about windmill, why a bear?
Why a bear?
Yeah,
Um, the processes to make it is Bear was just a better design. The first strip was Invisible Oven, which I arguably is like the roughest strip because it's the first strip. My character was actually the monkey that I wrote out, and the bear was just a better designed character, and it was more fun to draw. and he was more expressive, and that really was the meaning behind it. I didn't like bears. Like I didn't have big opinions on bears before. An animal, and like the if people ask me about why these animals specifically, it's like because I asked some of these people what their favorite animals were, and that was literally the reasoning. Some reasonings might be like my mom I drew sort of like as uh, a lamb, a sheep, because she's Christian. She likes that, you know. My yung mga lola ko, mga goats kasi hick sila and all that. So that it's that's just that's just how it went. And actually like a lot of it was like it made it easier to read, I guess, instead of like drawing people. And easier to make because that I always tell people you have to make it fun for you to draw, you know, because almost everything else is a drag. But like if it's a fun drawing.
Yeah, I can't even imagine drawing like one character, like drawing one character once is one thing, but drawing the same character in a second panel and making sure that the person looks consistent with a minor change in his movement, and then you have to draw the background again exactly as it was.
Mhm.
Like it just sounds. There's a reason I don't like comics. Sometimes. Josel, the other thing that struck me about this is that um, and you mentioned this earlier, you have a real obvious love for the form of comics. There's a lot of form of experimentation. You break channels, you make the panel borders with the floors, and walk that. But where does that come from? And I ask that because a lot of the ones that you named earlier do tend to stick to interior panel storytelling. Um, not all of them, but for example, you read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and it is straight up panel to panel storytelling. What Mel was saying.
Mm.
So where does that
Mm.
come from?
It's more. It's like it's a huge influence on me. And the thing with Windmills was okay, so first issue, it was third person omniscient narration. There's exactly one instance of like the first person I in that work. And then the second issue is like less introspective, more outward narration. And the third issue I introduce first person I, and then the fourth issue is like more dialogue and stuff. And the fifth issue, I'd gone basically one issue. Like first issue is like 9 panels mostly. Second issue is 9 panels all. Third issue would be like I lightened up and it's 4 panels. By the fifth issue, I wanted to explode the form because I was already doing like a lot of stuff that of that style on the side with other things like in Doc Brick and Kazon and all of that. So it was always like this idea that there has to be a conceit in every issue. Granted, when I got to issue 6 and then the later issues, I decided that I have to get back to drawing less strict, more loose, not have the grid anymore because I'd done everything with a grid. Um, Windmills is such a good proving ground and like practice area for me to learn storytelling because I really do love storytelling in all of its forms. The book that I'm doing right now, it feels culmination of all of the things that I've learned in the past few years, and it's like the longest sustained story that I've done, and I'm excited for people to read it in German because it's not coming out anytime soon. So yeah, but it all stems from Alan Moore being such a creative powerhouse of like um, writing and then pacing and then inventive storytelling and framing and not resting on any laurels, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, I get what you mean because I think Moore's greatest strength And in a way, it's actually a good thing you couldn't become a professional artist. I think his greatest strength is actually being able to see what his collaborators are good at and then maximize that
Yes. Mm,
and then
absolutely.
working with that. Because a lot of these guys that he works with, the best work they've ever done is with Alan.
Mm,
And then the other guys, um, they work with Alan and then they get better. So I think it's really how that
that's
works.
true.
You mentioned the other question that I have is why is it called Windmills?
Mm. It's called Windmills because I was living in UST, Sampaloc, and I was living on Carola Street, which is one street away from Don Quixote. And I'd always been fascinated with that story, even though I've never read it. Um, and I like the idea of this one person thinking that these windmills are like giant monsters. And that's generally been the story conceit for every windmill story is I start off with like a thesis, like a problem, like a anxiety. And by the end, I am always wrong. So that's why it's windmills. It's a Don Quixote reference. I've never read the whole thing. I just read like I think we read like a synopsis in high school, and I'm convinced oh, Don Quixote is a short story. No, no, it's not.
Oh, it's
I
not.
watched like a cartoon when I was a kid. Yeah. A lot of that is windmills. It's just pretending to be literary, but I'm an idiot, you know. So all these references and all of that.
Windmills is pretty great. So the self-deprecation is off brand. You mentioned earlier that you're working on a really big thing. Can you tell the viewers what that's about?
Mm. I'm working on Once Upon a Time in Tokyo, written by Margie De Leon, a great author and a good friend of mine. It's been a story that been a long time between the two of us. It's a autobiographical story from Margie's perspective of the time that she went to Tokyo as an exchange student, and then an old lady started stalking her. So I am currently, God, maybe 170 plus pages in the draft. I'm working with a publisher in Germany. I am hoping that I reach 200 pages and that's the end of the story. Originally, it was supposed to be a 100-page story, but the drafts kept piling up and back to me because you explained this part, you didn't explain this part. So there was like it's a lot of expanding because I had decided that I wanted to do a manga based story. And it was just it was a real happenstance of the thing that I got to be approved for that. This is the first book that I've ever been paid for that is ostensibly for my artwork, for for my brand, quote unquote, for Margie's story, you know. And I don't want to make comics anymore. It's really hard. It's really hard being a cartoonist, even if you get paid. God.
Eaten alive by comics. What are the alternatives in that
Yeah.
case?
Oh, I started, I don't know. It's weird because if you ask anyone in our Discord group of people that make comics, I've been making it since 2006, selling, right? And it's been 16 years and it's very hard to work in the local context, and it's been very good lately in terms of grants and all of that, but the economy is really rough. And as you would know, maybe a lot of like creators are uh not so hopeful with how the market is, you know. Um so I thought that like when I went the work, I would just be like, well, I went into the pitching process thinking I'm going there to have like good conversations with these smaller German publishers. I want to talk to someone who likes comics because it was far, right? So I went there with that thought process in mind. Um, I had Windmills, I had Hiwaga, I had all of my other works. I was just gonna gift them that. And then the person that I talked to, Simon Oler, I don't know how to pronounce the German name, was like, we had like a really good con. I gave him so many of my books, and then he's flat out straight. He said to me, "Oh, Windmills will never be it cannot be published because German words are three times longer than English words, and it would be too much of a effort to, to publish it." It's like, I know. I never thought I would get published. That's like sobrang suntok sa buwan, right? But he said like, "Thank you for all of these books. Please come back the next day. I will give you these German books that I have, if that's okay with you, just to be thankful." And it's very nice, right? The next day, we I go back. It's MOA. I'm from QC, right? And it's like, oh, I'm gonna hang out with Sebastian Allen. And then he said, "You wanna get smoke?" We got a smoke. And then I was showing him all the stuff that I was working on. Like I was working on yung posthumous Jeriel and Gillen book that I haven't gotten back to. Um, and then the last thing that I showed was Once Upon a Time in Tokyo was like a long ang tagal niya ng draft, and it didn't get picked up by Pickoff. It was just one entry before yung first batch. And then that's the one that they liked. He said, "I like this." Um, and that was like such a that was just a good smoke session because we talked about Jason Lutz Berlin. He's like a huge fan. Like just talked about how great comics is. And that was a turning point. I was supposed to get a job, to be honest. I wanted like a 9 to 5, but then this thing kept happening and we emailed back and forth for a couple of months, and I was like, this isn't gonna pass, this isn't gonna pass, this is whatever. And then we signed, and then we fixed your contract because I want the contract to be nice because Alan Moore and all of that, right? And
Yeah.
then, but I still got like basically a watchman contract. That's how they described it. It's like, oh, it's fine, whatever, right? And then they paid me half of the thing, and then I got the money in my PayPal, and like, oh, I guess it's not a scam. And if I don't finish this,
You gotta
I'm
give
the
it back.
scammer. So this is real. I have to, well, yeah. So like that's why I'm doing it, and it's been a good process, and it's very nice. It's just hard. It's hard to be good. Um, that's why all the windmill stories have been short stories because it's easy to have bursts. It's hard to do like a whole book, but I'm very happy with how it's turning out. I think it's my goal with the book is I hope that it's one book that my nephews can read and my niece can read, and it's easy to understand.
Is it? Do you have a set date to finish the book, or
Oh, it was 4 months ago. That was the deadline. I am very late, but hopefully by next year, within this year, it's done the draft because the sketch draft is actually it's pretty much how it's gonna look like. When I color it and I ink it, it's just gonna be mga add 20% each. That's the draft is the hardest part, which I really appreciate because the publisher shows that they care about the storytelling more than like some shiner. They keep telling me to do it because they're Germans, so they're more refined in what their taste, right? So like do the sketchy one. I like the sketchy doodly one. It's like, oh, okay, so I don't have to be insecure about how I draw. Just do the one that I showed. So yeah.
so we should be watching out for that, and we should also be watching out for more windmills.
Oh yeah, I might. I wanna. I think that next would be I want to pitch a expanded version of grief, the grieving thing. I actually have like 100 pages that I haven't put out since the pandemic that I could really cobble into a book, but I I have a I have trouble wanting to put it out because I'm so angry in it. It's even I feel like it's even heavier than like well, it's all of this grief and not grief, it's anger. So that might be something that it's cool. I think it's cool if you don't put out stuff. I like when like the si John Darnielle the Mountain Goat said, I have this unreleased album and it'll be perfect forever because it's unreleased. And I love it. And I like that.
The pandemic was pretty horrible. I don't blame you for being angry. So what I know, what events are you going to be at this year so people can find you? And where can people get themselves a copy of Windmills?
They can get a copy of Windmills from my Facebook page, Josel Nicolas Comic. You could also get a copy of it in Shopee. Just Shopee it, and then there's Lazada. You could buy it from its publisher, UST Press. Um, yeah. If you buy from me, you could you'll get like you can buy Grief as well and do a little drawing, you know, and it'll give me more money to help me with daily expenses. But, yeah.
Yeah, because you wouldn't
As
have
for
to.
events,
You wouldn't have to give some cut to Shopee or something.
it's just with UST, it's gonna be end of the year before you get the money, so which is fine. Whatever. Um, as for events, I'm not going to any events. It's actually like been a conversation point with a lot of my comic friends. Then it's like it's hard to sell these days, and I have to I have to really focus on the book and like I started new work recently, so yeah.
It's hard to have a day job and also make fun of it. It's hard to have a day job and run this channel. So yeah. Josel, any last words? Anything else you want to plug before we go up?
Um, no, this has been great. This has been wonderful. I just really wanted like to have like a good uh geeky interview where I could talk about yung influences ko. I thought that Kochal couple was amazing because I even forgot that. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Wait, seriously, it
So
reminds me
that
of American Elf.
yeah, that's what I know. I super love that comic, you know.
Yeah.
Um yeah, thank you. There's nothing really a lot to plug except we have a podcast. It's called Galingan Mo Naman. It's on Spotify. It's by me, Margie De Leon, River Cruz, Steven Sagad, Vin Buenaagua. It's a self-help podcast, sort of, and we just joke around. Those are like the comedian friends, and that's it.
So your work is inventive. It is, and I think it takes a lot of bravery to put out the stories. So congratulations and good luck with making more comics and also balancing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this. This was a good interview.
This was fun. Thank you.